Hello, Elisabeth, and thank you for agreeing to be part of this research project as part of the doctoral dissertation titled Social Inclusion and Participation in the Design of the Post-2015 Agenda, now known as Agenda 2030, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Your role and experience in the post-2015 process will provide significant input about the level of social inclusion of this development process. Hi, Elisabeth, would you give us your name and affiliation, please?
My name is Elisabeth Shuman, and I represent Association for Childhood Education International.
Thank you. So let me ask you, Elisabeth, in your opinion, what is the value or importance of social inclusion and participation during the design of the post-2015 development agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, since all of us will share the outcome or the aims of the post-2030 Sustainable Development Goals, it's really important that everybody has a say or had a say, because it's really not helpful for a small group of people to make decisions that affect everybody.
Thank you. So how has social participation influenced the post-2015 process, and what mechanisms were the most important to you?
Well, I saw a really huge effort to reach people who don't normally have their voices heard, because, again, there is a small group of people who are everywhere and express their opinion very freely and very strongly, but there are other people who really are not used to this, and I saw many efforts made to really reach them, whether it was online or offline, and bring their opinions that sometimes had a whole new twist to decisions that were made and that were important.
So would you highlight a couple of mechanisms perhaps, or are you thinking in a spectrum of like all of them were useful?
I am not really qualified to judge that. But I do feel that the ones I saw were quite helpful. Even to me personally, I have learned things, or I have learned about the challenges that certain people have that never occurred to me that they have, and it makes me better understand why certain people are not happy with things that are, and that we can do something about it.
In your view, was the design of the post-2015 agenda an inclusive process? What evidence do you think is there about this?
I believe there was great intention to be inclusive. One has to be realistic, that not everybody is willing to I'm sorry. One has to be realistic that not everybody is convinced that participation is useful, so maybe not everybody. But there certainly were opportunities. And I know that a lot of online outreach was made, but I know that also people went around with paper ballots and in other ways to get people's opinions and bring them to the places where they could be incorporated into decision making. So,
how familiar are you with the results of the My World 2015 survey, the UN system consultations, civil society consultations, or even the UN Global Pulse big data tools? Have you participated, interacted, designed, or implemented any of these instruments? And do you think these results are transparent and accessible?
I have not designed them, but I have certainly participated in the My World survey. I have liberally forwarded the opportunity to other people and encouraged them to participate. And as far as I know, they're quite available to everyone who wants to go on the website and look at them.
Do you think that the results of the aforementioned tools were useful or easy to make sense of?
Well, it depends on the questions, and it depends on where they came from, and maybe in some cases we're a little simplistic, but that is what happens when you do such a large-scale survey.
So what would you say you encountered in terms of results? Like, did you access them yourself, or did you see them being made available to NGOs? Or
I saw them made available. I always took great pleasure, for example, in the word bubbles that were liberally shared with us. I am not sure that I could always exactly manipulate them correctly. I more or less saw what I wanted to see, I guess. But I'm sure that the people who, the entities that used them knew exactly what they were looking at and incorporated them properly.
in your view, were these results presented in a timely manner to policymakers? Did they have any impact on the design of the post-2015 agenda? And do you think the SDG proposal is inclusive?
I believe so. I'm not really that familiar with the timelines. I do believe that there was a period over several years when input was sought, so perhaps something came towards the end that should have been included, but I think the negotiations went on very much to the last minute, and I think a lot of things were included as far as I know.
So, do you think the SDG proposal is inclusive as an outcome? Like, are you happy with it?
Yeah, I'm quite happy. I'm one of the people who originally thought we should stick to the magic low number, like the MDGs, and go from there. And I really, really became convinced as I watched the process in the various consultations and surveys that 17 was a much better way to go.
Did you personally, or as an individual, feel represented during the SDG design process? What could have been improved in terms of social participation during the design process of the post-2015 agenda and the SDGs?
I felt included. I felt I could participate online again. I don't really know. I mean, the only thing that could have been improved and can always be improved is to take the language and make it simpler and make it more understandable for people who do not circulate around the UN and go that way, because many, many people do not quite understand the lingo, or don't quite know how to interpret it, some of the questions and what it means. That's what I would say for the next round.
Okay. Can you describe at least 2 examples of programs and or policies designed to foster social inclusion and participation? Could be, outside of the UN. Could be.
Well, one of it's not a program, but the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities is a huge effort to foster inclusion, and it has been ratified by a number of countries, and which always also then means it's incorporated in legislation. So it's not like something that people do because they feel obligated to, but it's the law. And sometimes that's what it takes to advocate and to raise awareness in the general public. So.
Would you think of another one?
Well, another one. I'm trying to think. Well, again, there are various forms of discrimination. I'm trying to think. Maybe indigenous people, or another one is education. In the MDGs, it was access to education, and in the SDGs, it went much higher. It went quality education, which means you are not done by building more schools, but really, really making sure that everybody, including people who perhaps were left out because they're difficult or they're slower or they have different learning abilities, a big effort now needs to be made to include them and design programs accordingly.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Can you describe at least 2 cases where inclusion and participation were decisive in designing inclusive and successful public policies?
Again, I am looking again at the Convention on People with Disabilities, because that process was, as far as I know, very much informed by people who are living with that. And at the UN, the doors were open for their voices, and including there was opportunity to design programs. So that, to me, is inclusion.
Taking into account the lessons of the post-2015 design process, can you name at least 3 recommendations to foster inclusion and participation in specific terms around the implementation of the post-2015 agenda and the SDGs? And this is the last question.
Ouch. You want me to give extreme examples?
It could be,
Yeah.
3 recommendations. I mean, what do you think should be done around the implementation to continue to foster?
I think the major challenge and initial efforts is really to, as it says, make everybody aware that the SDGs exist and what they mean, not just for governments, but for everybody in the street. And once people are aware of them, perhaps people have different affinities to different goals, but show how they're interrelated and how that means each person can participate in achieving them.
And how exactly would you go about this? Like, what do you think are the best ways to, I assume you're talking about creating awareness and education.
Yeah, I don't know that there are any best ways, but there are many different ways. There is, of course, official marketing. There is inclusion in, the traditional media, and there, in my opinion, they need to be part of every school's curriculum, and they need to, including the fact that giving children then the opportunity to monitor whether they are being implemented in their area, and also where each individual's responsibility lies. And I think people don't just pick that up, but people need to be sometimes made aware. Let's talk about the SDGs that deal with the environment. People have to be a lot more conscious of where the things they buy come from, what goes into them, how we consume things. Before we throw everything in the trash, think about what happens after we don't see it anymore. Those to me are very simple everyday items, but I think they're hugely important towards achieving the SDGs.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, spot on. Anything else you would like to add? This has been very helpful.
Well, I think, I'm very glad that they were, first of all, introduced. They are the result of a lot of hard work by politicians, by experts, by civil society, by UN staff, and by NGOs. So it was really, really a multi-pronged effort. And I am sure so many things went on behind the scenes that they might not have been 17. There might have been, who knows, 170 or 5, but we have 17. They're all very delineated. They're all connected. And the big exciting part, of course, that every member state bought into them, or at least agreed to them when push came to shove. And now it's up to us in different ways and capacities to make sure that everybody knows about them.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. Thank you for participating in this interview. The content of the interview will be a part of a qualitative analysis that includes other 19 respondents from various institutions and representing diverse, different actors in the international community. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.